Miss Johnson, I'm going to ask a favor. You might turn me down, but for the sake of this video that I'm going to put on our church website, can I borrow those pictures that you showed to put on the sermon? Because people need to know.
I'll give you a copy of the names over time.
Yeah, that's I just want to, yeah, because I want to display just for the sake of this.
Yes.
Okay, and you said these are former slaves.
The two in the back.
The two in the back.
Yes.
The two in the back are former slaves that were here in Johnsontown, right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, I want to make sure I got this just right. That's the two standing.
Yes.
They were former slaves in Johnsontown.
Brother and sister, free from slavery when they were young.
They were freed from slavery when they were young.
But they were owned by the people in the front.
They were owned by the people in the front.
Yes.
Ah, okay. All right, thank you. That's a part of history. Amen. Okay. Thank you. My topic this morning, and there was a reason that I did that if you saw the bulletin. My topic this morning, of course, if we could hear from them now. And as we've read our scripture coming from Hebrews chapter 12, verses 1 and 2, this is a time of remembrance. It is a time of also looking forward. It is a time that we set aside to honor the legacy and the history and the memory of those that have gone before us. Now, I hope that when we leave here today, I want to leave you with a question that I want you to think about. What would the forefathers and foremothers of Johnsontown and the Zion Freewill Baptist Church say to each of you today? There is a deep connection, of course, with the history of the Wainwright Baptist Church and the Zion Freewill Baptist Church, as both Sister Johnson and Deacon Roper mentioned. The first pastor of Wainwright Baptist Church, Chester C. Wainwright, started this church in 1898 because there needed to be a church out here to minister to the black town named for the Johnsons, Johnsontown. That was a good thing. Now you have to think about back in the day, and one of the things that I will always have etched in my mind is something that when all of the churches in the Brackett Morrell Association were founded, I used to wonder how all through the Shenandoah Valley, these Northern Baptist missionaries in the 1800s and in 1868 and afterwards could go down through the valley all the way from the northern edge of the Shenandoah Valley, from Martinsburg and Boonesboro and Charlestown and Harper's Ferry and go all the way down into the area around Roanoke and Wirtz, Virginia, and establish churches in 1868. And we were on our way down to an association meeting, and Deacon Roper made this comment as we were riding down 340, and everybody knows trains are my hobby. Have been ever since I was 3 years old. I make no bones about it, and when I mention it, everybody goes, oh. But there's a reason I'm bringing this up, all right? And there'll probably be trains will be my hobby till the day I die. And y'all gonna have to bear with me at my funeral, because they're gonna sing some I'm going home on the morning train and those kinds of songs at my funeral. So just bear with it. And the only flying song they're gonna sing is I'm gonna fly away. And I'm gonna do it on some kind of railroad flyer. That's the way I'm going. But he made a statement, Deacon Roper made a statement as we were driving down the road. He said, you know how they started all these churches? He said they couldn't have done it without going down on the railroad, and it's hit me. Bingo! They rode the then modern technology down the southern, well at that time it was Norfolk Western Southern Railroad and the B&O Railroad to go to all these different towns, and then they would get off and go by horseback to the various small towns to establish the churches. Now if you think about going from Charlestown out here to the thriving metropolis of Johnsontown back in 1898, it was a long walk, and it was a good little horseback ride. We can do it like that by car today. But I remember Billy Smith talking about having to walk into Charlestown to buy groceries and walking on top of the snow. You see, it's different things I hear people talk about. I remember, because see, as growing up, I used to sit and listen to old folks. I'm not saying he's old, but I used to listen to my grandparents tell stories. So when people start telling stories, my ears perk up, because they got something to say and I'm gonna learn something from it. And so I used to listen to stories. So when he was telling stories about walking into Charlestown, just like when I heard that story about how folks went down the railroad to establish all the churches in the association, and when I heard that this morning about those freed slaves, I went, oh, here's another bit of history. I'm learning something today. And that fit in with why God gave me this topic 3 years ago. And I thought about all those graves out in that cemetery and the vision that I got. And see, this is how God speaks to me. I could imagine if they could pick up a phone in heaven and pick it up and call down here. I wonder what they would say to us today. I thought about the years I've been out here and seen people walk around in the cemetery and look at the headstones and stand there and look at ancestors' graves and parents' graves and grandparents' graves and think about the things and the memories that they're remembering. And I wonder sometimes what goes through some of your minds as you stand there, because I think about when I go to that cemetery just across the district line and stand at my mama's grave, or go to the other cemetery across town and stand at that cemetery just across the line at my grandmother and grandfather's grave and my aunt's grave and my cousin's grave. I know what goes through my mind when I stand there. Or I go to the cemetery in Youngstown, Ohio, and stand at my aunt and my uncle's graves there, and my cousin's grave and my grandmother's grave up there. I know what goes through my mind, and I wonder what goes through your mind. And I think about, oh, if I could just talk to them one more time, what things I would share to them. And I think about, what would they tell me now at this stage in my life? I wonder what they would say to us now. I think about now the times that I've gone out to the cemetery at the edge of Charlestown behind Page Jackson Elementary School, and stand there and look at that tall grave where Chester C. Wainwright is buried. the first pastor that we have record of the Wainwright Baptist Church, which, by the way, used to be called the St. Mark Baptist Church. Oh, here I did a little research. I wonder sometimes what he would say to the pastors that followed him. And I think about what things I would like to tell him about how far we've come. And I would love to tell him, as I stand here today, I was thinking how I would love to tell him I'm standing in the place where you once stood, speaking to the descendants of those folks who you once preached salvation to, speaking to the descendants of folks that you baptized. I wonder what he would have to say today to me. Yeah, there's a question I'd like to leave with you. And that's all because I have a deep love for history. And from what I can tell, some of you have a deep love for history too. And a deep love for family. Because otherwise, you wouldn't be here. Otherwise, you wouldn't come from New Jersey and New York and DC and other places. Oh yeah, I've done my research. I listen and I know. And you wouldn't be coming back this evening to recite "to be or not to be" and parts of "Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou, Romeo?" You see, I got this. But you see, I got to tell you a little something. I love history. And a little secret of mine, I got 2 flat screen TVs in my house. And they rarely get turned on because I'm not a fan of what they mostly put on television today, and I can't stand reality shows. They make me sick to my stomach. And I just realized I can't live on Kaopectate and Pepto-Bismol. They just, the reality shows make me sick. But what I do watch, there are movies that I like. And there is one person that has produced a lot of movies, and one thing on my bucket list is, before I leave this earth, there are 2 people I would really love to meet. I know that probably one I probably won't get a chance to meet in my life, but I follow, and I've got some friends that would probably think I'm nuts, but one day I hope to meet the person who now sits in the Oval Office. I don't care who don't like him. And I've got friends who don't like him, but I hope to meet him one day because I like him. He is a person that has done more to cause our folks to hold their heads up high. I want to meet that man one day. But this other person I want to meet, you'll never guess who it is, because he has inspired me, because I like to see people who have come from nothing and become something. And that person is none other than Tyler Perry. He's on my bucket list of people I want to meet. But he also happens to like trains. All right? So not only am I going to talk to him about what he has done to motivate people and the things he's overcome in his life, I want to talk trains with him too. But you see, he put out this movie one time, and believe it or not, I'm almost done. He put out this movie one time that I saw, and it moved me so much I had to buy, because I watch it every now and then, over and over and over again, because of the message. And in this movie, there's a couple of people that you probably know of. One of them has gone to glory, and this is another person that inspired me. And in this movie called My Dear's Family Reunion. Anybody ever seen that one? And this movie came out about the time I started working on a project that I'm just about nearing completion of. And then there was a person in that movie that really motivated me to start working on this project. And this person is gone to be with the Lord, and that person's name is Maya Angelou. And she was the first African American to become a streetcar conductor in San Francisco, along with being a person who was a very great literary artist. But in this movie, another person that you probably know, I believe her name was Cicely Tyson. I believe she was in that movie. And she played the very old matriarch in this family. And the part that stuck out with me is she stayed in this back room. But at one part of the movie, when everything was going on out there and the family was out there doing all kinds of stuff, and she all of a sudden got up and she said in a feeble voice as she was coming out, and she played that part so well, she was all bent over. And she came out and looked so distressed, and she said, "I want to go see my family." And she walked out. They helped her walk out, and they walked down through all of this huge family that was established, and she watched everything that was going on and how everybody was dressed, and she looked and she turned and she looked so surprised and feeble, and then she went back to the house and she rang this big bell. And then when she rang the bell and somebody started singing this old song, and everybody gathered, and then when they stopped singing, and then she made one profound statement. And I was sitting there and said, she's getting ready to say something very profound. And all she said is, "This what we paid our $20 for?" And all the young folks said, "What's she talking about? What's she talking about?" And then Maya Angelou interpreted. And she caused them to refocus on the importance of the family and the importance of coming together and the importance of remembering the heritage. And she reminded them of the history of the person who had toiled that ground where they stood as a slave and had saved up enough money to buy the ground that they once had been slaves on. And then it would now belong to them as a family, where they came together each year to remember their heritage. And she told them, and I don't remember all of the parts of the book, but told them to stand proud and embrace themselves and love themselves and pick themselves up from where they are. And that was at the end of the movie. And it made me think about that as I was preparing for this. And I said, I wonder what all of those folks that are resting on this hallowed ground, who toiled and served and slaved, and some of them who were probably just a half a generation away from slavery. I wonder what those two people standing behind their former masters would say to us today. Is this what they toiled for? Is this what they toiled for? Hold yourselves up high. I wonder what they would say today, looking down to see some of us today. What do you think? What do you think? And only each and every one of you can answer that question for yourself. Only you can answer. Sister Johnson made a statement. We come together once a year, but we celebrate all year long. So when you leave here today, hold your head up high. Celebrate the one who stood there with a shotgun in his hand, determined, I'm going to stand for what I believe if it costs me my life, but I claim these 14 acres for the Johnsons. And I dare anybody to take it away. That meant something. It was something worth dying for. Family is something worth dying for. Faith is something worth dying for. That is the great cloud of witnesses that stand around. They are standing in the heavens dressed in white robes, looking down. They've paid the price. Now they're saying, we're standing. We paid our price. Now you stand and look up. Be encouraged by what we've done. You keep on no matter where you live, whether it's in Southern Maryland or whether it's in D.C. or whether it's in Martinsburg or whether it's in New Jersey or New York or wherever you live. You stand tall, be proud. And if you've got dreams, expand your dreams, because as you expand your dreams, you're expanding the legacy of what we left you. Dream die. That gentleman who sat there in Upper Johnsontown might have laid his shotgun down and exchanged it for a crown. Now you take that crown up and place it upon your head and carry the baton of your dreams and your legacy on. And when you recite that poetry this evening, think about your ancestors looking down proud because you're at a place where they could not have dreamed to go. And whatever education you've gotten, you got what they slaved hard and earned the price for you to get. And you keep going to higher heights and greater bounds, because eyes have not seen and ears have not heard, and neither has it entered into the hearts of men the things that God has in store for you. Is there one this morning? Is there one? Won't you stand as I extend the invitation?